it was very hard not to cry because it made it very clear that she was at the end of her life, that it was coming. And she had been on hospice for a year at that point, a little over a
Wow.
year. And
Wow.
so it was something we were able to prepare for emotionally and like have moments with her that were very clear and very resonant. But I wasn't ever expecting the experience where she wasn't clear to be so profound to me. And it's something that I repeat to myself on the hard days where I will just think about that
What she
experience
said?
and what she said to me and
What'd
how
she
she
say?
saw me.
Yeah.
Um, I think I'm going to keep that private if you don't
Okay.
mind,
Yeah, no,
but
of course.
it
Yeah.
was something that I know I will hear on the hard days.
Welcome to the Weekly Transit. Interviews and conversations from an astrological lens. There's nothing more fascinating to me about this earth than the people who inhabit it. My mission is to create deep, vulnerable, and open conversations that invite our unique guests to share the arc of their ever-evolving journey through life, in the hope that their stories inspire and resonate with you, our listeners. I'm your host, Scott Tajarian. Welcome to the Weekly Transit. I am here with my guest, Taylor Tran. Taylor is a writer and a podcaster with an extreme interest in astrology. She doesn't call herself an astrologer because she doesn't do readings, but I would call Taylor an astrologer because, if you have this much interest in astrology, and astrology is a language, and Taylor, at the very least, is conversational, even though I know she's much more than conversational in the language of astrology. She's very knowledgeable with the language of astrology. And she actually hired me, a couple of years ago to help her with the editing process of her books, and just to give some insight from the astrological perspective to see if everything was in the book how I would describe it to be. So we worked together a little bit, and now she has her podcast, Moonlit Musings, where you bring on other astrologers to talk about astrology. And Taylor is a Virgo sun, a Aquarius moon, and a Gemini rising. So welcome, Taylor. It's great to have you here. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing very well. Thank you, Scott, for having me on. It's so nice to connect with you again. And like you said, after
Mm.
we worked together a couple of years ago, and I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Great to have you here. So, where did your interest in astrology begin?
I had like a passing interest when I was a teenager, but it wasn't anything that I really dove into. I was kind of in a phase of only knowing my sun sign for many years. And it wasn't until my Saturn return, which my Saturn is in Aquarius, and
Mm.
that Saturn return, I really started asking the big questions of life and what
Mm.
my belief systems were and how I wanted to, move forward in my life. Your Saturn return is a really kind of a pivotal couple of years. It can be very difficult, and I definitely struggled in mine. And so I started learning about astrology. I started coming up with the foundation for my books, the 12 Pointed Star Saga, and really started diving in and learning and writing and building that world. And I have come around to knowing so much more than I really ever thought possible. Because anyone who has started the journey of learning astrology, as soon as those doors open up, there's so much to learn, and there's so much to do, and just so many different ways that you can learn about yourself and others in the world around you. And I think it's a very powerful thing to have in your back pocket.
For sure. I don't think you ever finish learning with astrology. It's all you're always
Absolutely. There's always
you know,
something.
always something to learn that's new,
Mm,
because there's so many different ways to perceive the language based on the people that you're connecting with.
yeah.
I learn things all the time when I'm meeting with different people that I'm doing readings for, or just different
Yeah.
people in my life that come and go. Uh, every time I meet a new person, I'm learning
Mm,
something from the language of astrology. That's
yeah.
yeah,
I
eye
actually
opening.
I had that moment a couple of weeks ago. I was on a family vacation, and of course, the subject of what are you doing now popped up, and so I was answering with my podcast is about astrology and my books, and there's a lot of astrology in that, so I'm learning a lot of it. And so, of course, someone was like, "Okay, well, look at my chart," and so they pulled up their chart, and they had probably I think 4 or 5 planets in Capricorn. And then
Hmm.
I don't offer readings. That's not something that I'm trained in as far as like natal astrology. So I'm not super comfortable like giving life advice from that lens.
Hmm.
But I was like, I'll give it a gander. This is a person who doesn't actually believe that astrology is real, which is it's okay. I'm not everyone is going to agree with me and I can't make everyone happy. And so I just move forward with what, I know to be true and use that as to help me through life. And so I pulled up their chart. They had like 5 planets, 4 or 5 planets in Capricorn. And then for the rest of the vacation, I kept like seeing them do certain things and be very, very competitive and
Hmm.
very just like just embodying all of the Capricorn qualities. And I was like, this is a learning experience for me. Like, I've never met someone with this much concentrated Capricorn energy. And like, we would go out. I had planned to hang out with him and his girlfriend and my husband, and we all went out to go shopping around little shops. And we got to the first one, we got kind of separated, and then I'm looking around and I'm like, where did they go? And we like go out the door and they're like 3 stores down. And later we get the story and he's like, oh yeah, we just couldn't find you. So we just kept on going. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, okay. Just
Yeah.
onwards and upwards. There you go.
Yeah. That cardinal energy, huh?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And it was
Yeah.
including his son in Capricorn as well. So
Yeah.
it was a very interesting opportunity to see astrology in real life and start to recognize those things that I have not yet studied.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's so interesting. I have to like restrain myself with people when like I want to know like their chart, but
Mhm.
um like recently I was spending time with Gabriella's stepmom, and she was she's not a believer, even though
Yeah.
I'm like, there astrology is not a belief,
Yeah,
but
yeah, it's
i I understand. I know a little bit about her chart. She hasn't given me the time of birth, but
Mhm.
i uh I can see,
Yeah.
and so, but rather than pointing it out to her, I just have to keep my mouth shut,
Mhm.
when I notice
Mhm.
something there. Yeah, because it just kind of rubs people the wrong way sometimes
Mhm.
if you're trying to tell them, well, this is because of that,
Yeah,
because you're a
yeah.
Capricorn, so of course you're showing all these Capricorn traits. Yeah.
Yeah, if they're not ready to receive the information, it's just not going to go over well. So I've hit a few of those roadblocks in my time as well. But I try for my part, I always try to meet every new experience with curiosity
Hmm.
instead of like putting up roadblocks and boundaries and things. I'll end up asking certain questions to see what the response is so that I can learn a
Hmm.
little bit more about,
Yeah.
the placement or the energy that I'm, kind of trying to understand or study when it comes to a person that I know.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Hmm. And so you went through your Saturn return about 4 years ago. Was it about
Almost.
yeah,
How long
three,
have I
four
been
years
married?
ago?
Three
Three,
years.
4 years ago?
Yeah,
In
I was
20,
planning my
because,
wedding during my Saturn return, and
mm,
I can feel every bride listening cringe. And yes,
mm,
it was not great.
it
It
was
was very
intense, huh?
challenging.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, in 21 and 22 is when you were going through the Saturn return.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and so that's when what perked up for you at that moment that you got more interested in astrology?
I think I started to really get excited about writing. I got really excited about, you know, planning the first book and actually sitting down to write it. And if I was going
Mm,
to write it, I needed to learn astrology. And so I would get, and this is about the time that I had reached out to you just before this, when I was still building the world and I was percolating on a few things and I knew I wanted to do it. And I didn't really know how because I didn't have enough knowledge there. And so it wasn't until I really started to sit down and start writing that I thought I need to understand more and I need to get
mm,
deeper into this language, into this knowledge. And I that's really what sparked my interest because I knew I had this idea, this download of the world that I wanted to write in and the story that I wanted to write and how I wanted to approach it prior to my Saturn return, but I didn't take
mm.
it seriously until my Saturn return had really gotten going.
So was it the idea of the story that came first and then the desire to weave in astrology, or was it you suddenly had an interest in astrology and the story came after?
The story came first. The
Okay.
idea for the world came first. The story came first. And
Uh-huh.
then, and just to give some context, the world that this is written in is it's post-apocalyptic. However, the city that was built, it has big walls around it, and big bad guy came into power and segregated the city by sun sign. And
Hmm.
so
I love the dystopian
oh yeah, oh
stories.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Fun.
so I've had a lot of fun creating each section of the world based on the sun sign that is surrounding it.
Hmm.
And that was kind of the place where I had lived for so long, is knowing what sun signs were and what they meant. And so that really helped to help me build the world. But I knew there was more to astrology and I knew there was more that I needed to learn. And so to really do the world justice and to make it really come alive. And so I started deep diving into other planets and other energies and things of that nature. And then at that point is when I contacted you and said, hey, can you
Hmm.
help me here? I want to make sure that each like sect of the sun sign is doing the right job and, doing, something that's aligned with the energy. And I remember having a conversation with you, Scott, when I think we were arguing over the sect of Aquarius. And
Oh.
you mentioned, well, that is what they could be doing, but they could be doing something over here and they could be doing something over there. And I had to stop you and I was like, Scott, it can't be perfect. It can't be
Oh.
perfect. The city has to
Hmm.
fall. Like, we
Yeah.
can't, it has to be just right, but
Uh-huh.
everyone should be just unhappy enough that it can't last. Because that's
Hmm.
where our story is. Because when it comes down to it, segregation never works. And there are
Hmm.
so many more things in your birth chart than your sun sign. And
Yeah.
one of the major lines, one of the major themes that comes up in the story is you are so much more than your sun sign. Because
Yeah.
I lived in that place where all I knew was my sun sign, and I didn't realize there was so much more out there that I could know, that could tell me about myself, that could tell me about the people around me, that could tell me about the world and how I move through it. And that's kind of how it flowed right in, and I knew that I wanted to write this story, that it deserved to be written, and it deserves to be written well. And so that's
Hmm.
what really helped me to buckle down and learn astrology and really take it seriously.
I don't remember this argument. I don't remember having any
Good.
arguments with you. I mean, I remember, you know,
Maybe
I don't.
argument's the wrong word,
I
but
think it had.
disagreement.
And there was something around, areas that the different signs were supposed to be
Mhm.
doing in terms of work.
Correct.
And so,
Yeah.
what was it for Aquarius?
I think for Aquarius, I I had them on city planning and um like their job even now is in this city is to make sure that the city runs with efficiency. And so
Okay.
like they're very much into like the technological part of the world, into
Yeah.
like how they create energy and
Mm-hmm.
the plumbing, and their the day-to-day things, trying to make them as and try to push them into gosh, what is the word that I'm looking for? Trying to push them into the future as much as they
Yeah.
can with
Yeah.
the knowledge that they have, with the resources they have, because again, this is post apocalyptic.
Yeah.
And I think I can't remember what else you had suggested, but it was one of the main task of one of the other sects, and I can't remember which one it was, but it was. I just remember saying, Scott, it can't be perfect. The city has to fall. Like it has to break apart, because that's where the story is. Because trying to put anyone in a box that only contains their sun sign is it's never going to work. It's never going to be the full expression of your soul. And
Yeah.
that's the beauty in astrology.
Well, what you described sounds like Aquarius. I don't know
Yeah.
what I was saying, why I was saying that that wasn't right.
Oh no, you were saying it was right. It was more they should be doing more things. So you were trying to give me additional jobs for them. But
Huh.
I had had the I can't remember what it was. I might be able to look it up and send you a
Yeah.
message later
Yeah.
if it
Yeah.
comes to me. But
Yeah, because I'm like,
yeah.
I don't. Why was I criticizing that? I mean, that sounds
I
sounds
think
good
you
to
were
me.
I think you were just adding. You're trying to add value
Huh.
there. That's all.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't remember. So, yeah, and I mean, I agree. Yeah, that's what Of course, you're more
Mhm.
than your sun sign.
Yeah,
It's there's more than 12 types of people in the world. Um.
absolutely.
So yeah.
We contain
Yeah.
multitudes.
Yeah. For sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, what did that mean to you growing up? Like, when did you first understand that you were a Virgo?
I was probably around like 12 or 13. When
How'd you
you're,
find that out?
I, I didn't know my birth time, but I knew my birth date. And so I think we were probably at a sleepover. I think we were at a sleepover where, everyone's talking about, the day they were born and birthstones. And then someone brought up astrology and your birth sign. And so I had no idea what they were talking about. And
Mm.
so I gave them my birthday, which is September 8th. And they were like, "Oh, you're a Virgo." I was like, "Oh, great. What does that mean?" Lo and behold, I have a Virgo stellium. So it's a lot of Virgo energy happening over here.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, what did that mean to you when you found out you were a Virgo?
I didn't quite know what it meant, but the more that I researched on my own and just gathered information slowly over time, it really resonates with me. Like, again, I have a stellium, so it's the organizational quality and like time management and having a schedule.
Mm.
Those are they speak to my heart. Not only that, but this girl loves a list. I love a
Mm.
list.
Yeah.
I have lists for everything. Like if you could
Mm.
see my work calendar, like I have like my top priorities, and I have my maybe, and things of that nature. And everything's blocked off and scheduled in. Even I start my day out in my garden in my front yard for an hour, and I make myself like touch the dirt.
Mm.
And it helps to start my day with that kind of grounding activity.
Mm. Yeah, so gardening is a thing with you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I did plant flower gardens in our first house where I was living when I wrote the bulk of the 12 Pointed Star Saga and the first book, Virgo. So it's funny how I started there.
I know.
But
I
there
might have
is,
I might have been critical about that. I said, no, it's got to be Aries. Like,
you
really, it should be the
know,
first book.
so, okay, let me address that real quick, and
Yeah,
I'll
yeah,
circle
yeah,
right on back.
yeah.
I started with Virgo because my main character is a Leo. My main
Mm,
character, Jasmine, she is a Leo. And I wanted the last book to be about her.
mm,
She is on a journey to figure out who she is. And so I started with Virgo. And by the time we make it all the way to Aries, she will have enough experience in her body and knowing who she is and being able to express herself fully to begin that this is me, that is you, and have those
mm,
boundaries. She needs time to develop that because she spent
mm,
so much of her time being told she's not good enough and she's never going to be good enough and put in situations where she fails for some technicality. And
mm,
so she will need time to develop herself. She will need time to develop her one on one relationship. She'll need time to develop her underlying qualities that we don't know, none of the readers know yet.
mm,
And so, like, she will slowly go through this transformation. And by the time we get to the Aries book, she will be ready to step forward. And this is who she is. And then that will be challenged and challenged and challenged. And then by the time she comes around to the Leo book, she'll be this is me, loud and proud. And so I wanted to give her time, and I've given her as much time as I possibly can.
mm. Well, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. And I like that arc that by the time she gets to the Aries, like that's when she's
Yeah,
clear about who she is and she's
yeah.
ready to stand up for herself and she feels empowered. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
So is it planning to be a 12 part series? A book for
yes,
each sign?
yep.
Yeah.
So that
Mm-hmm.
is the plan currently. Perhaps I will do additional books after that. It kind of depends on how the story develops over time. I have a loose plan for what all of the books will be, but I know that I might be able to pull some of those points in and allow the story to develop in a different way. I'm just
Mm,
kind of, since it's book one of 12 books, I'm really focusing on developing the very beginning of the story and setting the world that I'm
mm,
then going to, break apart, but to build it into something better.
yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I have just a exceptional developmental editor named Hannah who has made this process a lot easier. And it's so nice to, just like my conversations with you, it's so nice to be able to bounce things off of somebody and just really
Mm,
discuss them with someone. And I
yeah.
I feel like that's my Gemini rising coming out, because I just love being able to do that. And it's not something I did as a child. I was a very shy child, very
Mm,
private child, which I think is
mm,
very much that Virgo energy that we were just talking about.
yeah, for
And
sure.
it's not until I hit about 14, 15 that I really started to lean more into my rising sign. And of course, if I was around my family, I'm just chatty Cathy, just going,
Mm,
going, going. But it was around people that I didn't know that I was a little bit more reserved. I would have things to say all the time. I would just say them in my head.
mm.
And it wasn't until I started to gain a little bit of confidence that I started speaking out and using my voice.
That's interesting because like
Yeah.
looking back at when you were around 14, 15, that's when Saturn was making a conjunction with your Chiron. And so, yeah, I was like, bringing your wound into reality so that you could
Mhm.
really sit with it and be there and in a sense like overcome it or feel
Yeah.
empowered because of it, because you have this wound to your sense of creativity and joy,
Yeah.
home and family. But Saturn moved through there when you were actually right before your 14th birthday,
Mhm.
is when it
That
formed a
makes
conjunction with.
sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
when I was homeschooled at the time, and that is when I started taking courses at the local community college with one of my very close friends at the time. We were both
Mm-hmm.
homeschooled, and we were both a little bit bored. So,
Mm.
and my mom thought, you know what, let's let them take a couple classes at the local community college, and we had a lot of fun. We took some dance classes, we took some computer science classes, some language classes, things like that. And it forced me to introduce myself
Mm.
to a lot of people and speak up in class. And it challenged me in that way. And in a way that I hadn't been challenged in many years because
Mm-hmm.
I went to public school and elementary school, but I had some medical issues in middle school that we then didn't get a diagnosis for until I was 17. But that was the time where I was challenged to speak up and introduce myself and talk to people that I've never met before, some of whom were, much older than me, because there's all ranges of ages attending classes at community colleges, which is absolutely wonderful.
Hmm.
And it was a time that I was able to really break out of my shell. And I
So
hadn't
you,
understood
yeah.
it until just now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, and also, during when you were right after you turned 14, Jupiter formed a sextile with your sun. Jupiter
Mm,
was transiting through Scorpio in your sixth house and
wow.
formed a sextile with your sun. So that created expansion
Mm-hmm.
to your identity. It also later formed a sextile to your Jupiter. So that really opened you up.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you were 15, that's when Jupiter squared your sun and your Jupiter. So maybe like when you were 15, you were getting a little too confident or cocky and full of yourself, and you maybe pushed it a little too
Yeah.
far during that period. Also,
Probably
yeah,
knowing like hormonal teenagers.
yeah, exactly,
But
right.
that's also the time that my medical issues had really started to ramp up, and they were
Mm,
something that was starting to be every single day. And being a hormonal teenager in copious amounts of pain, I was not fun to be around. And to speak to the themes that you're talking about, I a lot of the time I felt like I needed to hide my symptoms
mm,
so that my parents wouldn't worry, or I could still go out with my friends and do fun stuff. And then I would get into situations where I can't ignore the pain anymore, and I would have to I wouldn't be fun to be around anymore. And like I'm sure my hormonal teenage self said some things it probably shouldn't. I just can't remember them right
mm.
now.
Would you mind sharing a little more about what you were
Oh,
going through? Like what
yeah.
was your medical condition?
So I started to have headaches, like really, really bad headaches. And
That's
they
a
would
very
be like
Virgo thing.
once and every 2 weeks, and then it was once a week, and then it was every couple days, and then it was every day. And
Hmm.
it turns out, years later, when I was 17, we finally got a diagnosis of Chiari malformation,
What
which
is that?
basically means that there's a hole at the base of your skull, and your brainstem and spinal cord go through it. My cerebellum, which is right back here, it
Hmm.
controls your movement and that is also going through the base of my skull. So there's not enough room for my brainstem and spinal cord. And so it was all like really tight in there. And the points in life where you find this illness is when you're about 2 and you start, saying no and having opinions and why, and you want, your brain is growing at that point, and that's the time then you find this illness. And then when you go through puberty, your brain grows again, and that's another time you find this malformation. And for women, naturally, you also go through menopause, and people have found this malformation at that point in time because your brain can change during that portion of life. And so there was just a lot of pressure inside my skull, and really nothing that I could do about it. Anytime, and I was a competitive gymnast. So I was at 15, I was competing at level 8, which is like you have level 8, level 9, level 10, then you move into elite, and you become a contender for Olympics, things of that nature.
And this was for what sport?
Gymnastics.
Gymnastics.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. I was at the time doing really big tumbling passes. I was training to do a double backflip on floor. I was training to do some pretty gnarly releases on bars. But my favorite event was beam. I love beam. And I was really, really good at it. It's the one thing that I miss, which is not something you often hear like from gymnasts. Beam is usually like the really frustrating one, but very Virgo in nature. I liked that it had to be exact, and it was a challenge, and it had to be exact. If you are off a degree, you fail. And so it was very challenging for me. And I really enjoyed that linear structured event. And so I ended up retiring, and I had originally planned to go to college, hopefully with a scholarship of some kind. And so that was a big thing that was now just no longer an option, which was pretty devastating at the time. But I was in so much pain that I couldn't. Like it was so overwhelming for my headaches. And then I also didn't know this at the time, but I also had another illness that affects my joints, makes them extra flexible. So when I was 17, we were going in for another round of brain scans because I was still having headaches and we didn't know what it was. And my primary care is an absolute saint. And he was with us every step of the way and was like, please don't give up hope. We're going to figure out what this is. And so I ended up going to the same place to get a brain CT scan on 3 separate occasions in the same year at 17, and had the same radiology tech every single time. And the third time I went in, he looked at me and was like, "You're back?" I was like, "Yeah, we still don't know." And he goes, "Okay, tell me where the pain is. Just tell me where it is and I'll see what I can do." And I was like, "It is right here." And it's like a knife, and then it spreads out through my whole head. And it happens multiple times a day. And I don't know how to make it stop. I don't know what's wrong. And I need to know so I can fix it. And he goes, "That's why we haven't found it. When you do a CT scan of the brain is up here. So it's like to the base of your ears, maybe."
Yeah.
At least that's how I understood it when he explained it to me. And so he increased the scan to include part of my neck. A couple days later, we get a call from my primary care. And he goes, "I am so sorry, but we found it. We figured it out." And I was like, at first I'm like, "Thank God, like, thank you." And he was like, "The problem is there's very little we can do about it. And that doesn't involve neurosurgery." So he ended up getting me in with a surgeon, and I had I mean, I ended up having 6 neurosurgeries throughout. I had 3 in 2010. I went to college after 5 weeks after emergency surgery and scared my mom to death. She was terrified. Turned 18 a couple of weeks after that, and then ended up coming back home after that first semester to have another surgery with a different surgeon who diagnosed me with my second illness, which is called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a connective tissue disorder. And I
Okay.
have the hypermobile kind. So like my joints are extra stretchy and like they'll just fall out of socket if I push them too hard. And
Wow.
the only reason I didn't have problems with that as a competitive gymnast was because we trained so hard to be strong, like so super strong. It was holding my joints in,
Hmm.
and it actually ended up helping, but I also did a lot of damage to my joints, which I now have a lot of joint pain, but it's something that I'm able to manage. I've really learned how to manage my symptoms, and after that second diagnosis, we really understood what to do. And so I had 3 more surgeries. And after that, I've been able to live pretty much pain free and, just able to manage my symptoms pretty well. And after that, it's just sky's the limit.
So you were a competitive gymnast.
Correct.
And when did you start doing that? You were how old?
Oh, when I started gymnastics?
Yeah,
Oh, I was 3.
3. And then by
Yeah.
the time you were like 15, you
Hmm.
started getting these headaches.
Yeah.
And that's a very Virgo thing, by the
Hmm.
way.
Yeah.
Um, and like when you look at Louise Hay's book about headaches, it's invalidating the self criticism, and fear, which
Mm.
are very, the sort of underbelly of
Oh,
Virgo.
yeah.
So the mantra there is, I love and approve of myself. I see
Hmm.
myself and what I do with eyes of love. I am safe. So you went in, you had these scans, and they finally scanned your neck, and then they realized that there was this issue with the neck connecting to
Hmm.
the head and the spine going through there. And so they did a surgery to relieve that.
Correct. Yeah, it's called
Okay.
a cerebral decompression.
And so they only had to do that one time and they corrected it
I had that done 4 times.
4 times
4 times,
before it was
yeah.
all. Yeah.
Because of one of the parts of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is that when someone with EDS has an injury, we grow way too much scar tissue.
Mm.
So my first surgery, they just took out bone. At the base of my skull, it's not a circle anymore. It's like an oval. So it was
Wow.
creating space, but my body grew a lot of extra scar tissue that filled in all of that space and put
Mm.
more pressure
Oh
on
my
that
God.
area. So it ended up making it worse. And so
Hmm.
they went back in and did a second part to the surgery, which is called a duroplasty. And so the casing around your brain and spinal cord is called the dura. And what they can do is take a piece of graft muscle and put it on your dura to create even more space in that area. And scar tissue does not grow on graft muscle. So
Hmm.
once they put all of that in, I started to feel a little bit better for a
Where did
couple
they
of
graft the
days.
muscle from? From where?
Um,
Where did they take the
just
muscle?
behind my ear.
Uh huh.
And
So.
so or like in that general area. So
Mm-hmm.
they and then the next surgery that I had ended up being emergency surgery because the graft muscle didn't take and it lifted, and I was
Mm.
leaking CSF fluid. So I had to have
What is that?
emergent oh gosh, what's it called? It's the fluid around your brain and spinal cord. I could
Wow. That sounds
But
scary.
the acronym is CSF. Um
Okay.
And so that was leaking, and it causes the worst vertigo you
Oh
can
my God.
imagine. So I had emergency surgery and it was fixed. And so That was all in 2010. That was January,
Mm.
June, and July of 2010. And then I went to college 5 weeks after my third surgery, the emergency one, and turned 18 a couple weeks after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And January, June,
And
and
July.
July
Yep.
of 21 of 2010,
2010. Yeah.
and then you went to college,
Yep.
but then you had the issues with the over elastic joints.
Yes. And I also was having headaches again, and the original surgeon that I worked with basically told me they couldn't help me
Hmm.
anymore. They had done everything that they could. And so my mom, of course, was like, that's not good enough.
Hmm.
And she found a Chiari specialist, Dr. Henderson, who is amazing.
Hmm.
And he works out of DC, Bethesda area. And I saw him, and it was the first time that a physician who knew what they were talking about, sat me down, explained what I have, why I have it, and what they're going to do about it, and like actually made me feel like there was an end in sight.
Hmm.
Every other surgery I had before that was like chaos. It felt like chaos. I didn't
Hmm.
understand what was happening. I knew it had to happen, but I was also 17, so I don't know how much they were allowed to tell me or how much like my mom knew, but I didn't know. And when I saw the next surgeon, I was 18, so I was legally an adult and could be in every conversation and really understood what was happening and why it was happening. And that surgery, they ended up having to, because of my EDS and the way that the surgeries were done originally, I was basically a bobblehead. Like I didn't have enough structure. And so the fourth surgery, Henderson went in and fused a few of my vertebrae. And so that went really well. I felt really good after that. However, my body didn't like the metal
Hmm.
and started like, this will sound crazy, but the only way that I can describe it is it felt like my body was unscrewing the screws. And like you could feel them on like in my neck. It was the
Wow.
weirdest thing. And so we had to go in and put in a smaller set of metal, and that was surgery 5. And then surgery 6, my body still didn't like the metal. And surgery 6, they went in and took all the metal out once the fusion was set.
Hmm.
And then after that, I have just gone about my merry way.
So there's 6 surgeries then,
Yeah,
as opposed to
6.
5,
Yeah,
as
6
opposed to 4.
neurosurgery. Yeah.
Yeah, because I thought you said 4 earlier.
4 was the decompressions, like the specific decompressions.
Hmm.
The other ones were more about stability and doing what was best for my body, because my
Hmm.
body was rejecting the metal. It didn't like it, and it was like there was just too much in that area. My body was trying to solve the problem, and so it was better once the fusion had set and everything is good and the glue in between is all done solidifying. Then they were able to go in and take the metal out. And since then, it's been pretty manageable, which is
Hmm.
a huge step up from what I was experiencing before.
Wow. Well, in January of 2010, Mars was conjunct your Chiron, the god of war, conjunct Chiron. And yeah, that was
Ugh.
during the first part of January, first part of January, like the first couple weeks.
My
Um,
first surgery was January 20th,
January 20th. So
2010.
January 20th, what was happening then? That was Uranus, the planet of the unexpected and revolution, was opposite your Jupiter, the planet of expansion. So that brings about, and your Jupiter is in Virgo,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yeah.
the mind and Pisces is the unconscious, and so expansion and uh, unexpected sort of circumstances there, or
Hmm.
and something unusual happening. So that's what was happening then. And then in June you had another surgery.
Yep. I don't know
What day?
what day. It was
Okay.
very late June. And then my next surgery was exactly 2 weeks later, and it was in July. But I don't know the exact
Okay, so
dates
it
of
was the
those two.
end of June.
Hmm.
So, end of June in 2010, Saturn was stationing retrograde at 28 degrees in Virgo, and that squares your Mars. So the planet of restriction, squaring the planet of action all through the end of
Mm.
June. And your Mars is in the first house, which
Yeah.
is associated with the first sign, which is Aries, which rules the head.
Yeah.
And then Mars, and then Saturn was also squaring your Chiron, or not your Chiron, your North Node in
Mm.
Sagittarius. Really restricting you, but also trying to give you a sense of understanding or awareness in what you need to do to follow your soul's purpose. End of June, also, we talked about how in January Mars was conjunct your Chiron. End of June, Venus was conjunct your Chiron.
Mm.
And then as we moved into July, by the time we got to July, uh right, it was July
Hmm.
too, also.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was probably the first week of July.
yeah. So the retrograde of Saturn retrograde actually ended in May. So it was just getting going again
Mm.
in June, and then by the time we got to July, it was Saturn was still squaring Saturn was basically at 28 degrees squaring your Mars
Yeah.
from June 12th or June 13th all the way until July 7th. And then prior to that, it was at 27 degrees squaring your North Node.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Phew.
yeah. Intense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm. And I just, yeah. Wow. I just, I just think about like your North Node and, pushing to find your voice
Hmm.
because it's in Sagittarius, needing to speak up, to share your truth,
Hmm.
to really channel through that frequency from the higher power to share your wisdom and, pulling you out of like that reserved nature
Yeah.
that is very Virgo. Sagittarius is very different from Virgo, and that's what you're here to develop.
Yeah.
And then after that, you were dealing with the joints. Was after,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. By the time I really understood what EDS was and was done with my neurosurgeries, it kind of became I had not been a competitive gymnast for long enough that I wasn't as strong. And I started to, and I had continued working out when and how I could, in between surgeries, because each one has like at least a 10-week recovery period. At 10 weeks of hard recovery, but it takes about a year to really get back to feeling normal. And
Hmm.
so um, by the time I had gone through all of that, and then it's about a year after my last surgery, I wasn't as strong as I used to be. And so I started to have a lot of joint pain. And I had what I know now are partial dislocations or subluxations. And like especially in my shoulders will like partially come out of socket if pushed to a certain extent, and my hips will do the same. I have a lot of pain in my hands, which is not great for being an author. So I have to be very careful about how I use my hands and in what way. And so, so that I can accomplish the things that I set out to do, whether that's, writing a couple of chapters or, typing out something else for the podcast or going out in my garden and, like using my hands and things of that nature. And that's something that has been ongoing since that time. And I've really, and it's funny that you talk about my North Node, which is something that I've been studying a lot more recently. In the past like 5 years, I struggle to channel when it comes to writing because it's difficult to be in my body because it's to get out of my head and just settle into my body because so much pain lives here. And it's something that, especially over the past year, I've really been trying to, master the art of settling into my body. And I've started seeing someone for Reiki because I was really concerned in the spring. I was having a lot of issues with writing and connecting and being able to just like get in the zone of writing. And when any author or creator knows that feeling of just like almost disconnecting from the world and just like it just falls out of you, whatever you're creating, it just happens. And I was really struggling to get to that place because my body was a scary place to be. And that's step one, is like coming down. And so I ended up speaking to my pain management specialist, and we switched around some medications that I'm on. And really what ended up happening is the medications that I was taking, my body got used to them and they weren't processing them and they weren't as effective. And so I was able to change what we were doing. I started going to the chiropractor and I started a little physical therapy. And I was able to get myself back to where my body wasn't so much of a scary place to be. And I was able to start, coming down to earth, coming into my body. And then I was able to access that like higher power that I often feel is what's guiding me when it comes to my story. And like I genuinely know that this series that I'm writing, it exists already. Like it's somewhere, it exists and it's used, like I am the vessel that it's coming out of. And if I can't connect to that, then it's very difficult for me to do it justice, really. And so that's kind of over the past about 5 years is really the process that I've been going through and just trying to understand and help myself through it in a way that is as as efficient as possible. Because
Yeah.
but also because the next phase of my life includes motherhood. And I know that if I do not master this craft, if I do not master the step by step, process, if you will, then it will take me a lot longer to get through it because, babies aren't going to wait for you to finish a chapter. They're going to need your attention right now. So every minute is going to count once I have entered that phase of my life. And so I want to master the ability to step into that space while I have the time and energy and literal space around me to be able to do that. So I'm excited. It's been an interesting, and I've really enjoyed Reiki. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I've really enjoyed it so far.
So it's helping.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I was under the impression that maybe like some of my chakras were blocked or something like that, but I went in and I had my first session and she said, "No, you're like all of your chakras are completely open. Like you need to access them. Like you need to figure out how to get down to them." And I was like, "No. I just
I
don't want
wonder if
to."
accessing them come through partnership. because
Mhm.
your North Node's in the seventh house. And I know you
Mhm.
mentioned you're working with an editor or
Oh
somebody
yeah.
that's helping you. So,
Mhm.
I think like a great editor or a writing partner is
Mhm.
going to help you access your inner truth with that seventh house
Mhm.
North Node in Sagittarius. So it's not about doing it alone.
Mhm.
Doing it
Yeah.
alone is going to create more challenges in completing what it is you're working on.
Yeah, and the first iteration of this book that you read, that was me doing most of it, basically on my own. I didn't have like writing partner, and now I have Hannah and I meet every 2 weeks to discuss what I've been able to accomplish, and we have a very supportive rapport when it comes to, like, I help her with her projects and she helps me with mine, and like
Mm,
we have a very solid friendship at this point.
mm,
And it's been so nice being able to bounce ideas off of her, and you as well when it comes to building the world. That's our conversations were like a brain blast when it comes to building this world, because having not
mm.
just having the just someone to reassure me that, you know yeah, that is what's supposed to be happening here, was so instrumental, because when I start doing everything on my own, that's when I really step into that Virgo self-critical, who the heck
Exactly.
do I think I am,
Exactly.
situation.
Yeah.
And I'm usually writing in a very dark room, just me, myself, and I.
Hmm.
And I've had to make changes where like my phone goes out of the room, and if I could write without access to the internet, I probably would. But
Mm,
unfortunately, I do need the internet for research purposes while writing.
hmm.
But having someone like you just talk to when I was building the world, having Hannah when it comes to really developing the story, has been absolutely instrumental. When I started not trying to do it all on my own is when things really started to unfold and break out into something
Exactly.
better.
Yes. That's it. That's the key. Absolutely. Yeah. Because otherwise you're getting in your way with the
Hmm.
overly critical analytical perspective.
Yeah.
It's important to
Yeah.
remember that, you know, yes, you can improve upon your work, but really trust what's coming through you.
Yeah.
If you're being overly critical or analytical of yourself, you're being overly critical or analytical of God.
Hmm.
And that is not what you're meant to be doing with the North Node in Sagittarius. You're just allow it to
Yep.
come through. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. And we've
Yeah.
actually started, Hannah helped me to kind of redevelop how I write. Like,
Hmm.
I, very Virgo energy over here. When I give her chapters, she reads them and she goes, "Are you sure this is your first draft? Because you haven't spelled a single word wrong. All of the commas are exactly where they're supposed to be.
Uh-huh.
If anything, you can take a few out." Like, and every once in a while, just to surprise her and keep her on her toes, I will intentionally like go back through and like spell a word wrong and then send it to her just to make her happy. but
But you
but
are combing through. You're not just
I
stream of consciousness writing and sending it to her.
yeah, that
That's the
is
problem.
I know, and it's something she and I have been working on quite a bit. So we've changed. When I start to write book two, what I'm going to be doing is sitting down and stream of consciousness, figuring out what I want the whole book to be. Like, write 2 pages, 3 pages of start to finish, what is the story? And then at that point, I will send that to her. She will break it down into like the rising action, pivotal moment, falling action, trials and tribulations, and then like climax and crescendo. And so we'll break it up to there. And then every book has 30 chapters for the 30 degrees of each sign. And so I will take each of those sections and break them down into their chapters. And at
Love
that
that
point, I
structure.
will
It's
take
cool.
right?
Yeah.
And then I'll take like what this chapter is supposed to be, and that's the next set of like stream of consciousness. Like with this in mind, how do I make it, big? And
That's
so
it.
what I have done in the past is just going, okay, chapter 1, what's it going to be? Okay, chapter 2, what's it going to
Oh,
be?
no.
And when I write that way, it is not as it it looks good, like page to page. The story is fine, but it requires a lot of editing when I write that way.
Yeah.
So, and like rewriting and redoing, and that's the part that kind of bugs me, honestly. I don't mind editing my work. I like expanding my work, but I don't like scrapping it and redoing an entire chapter. Like that just feels like you just ripped my heart out
Totally. Because you
when
put
I
so much
do that.
work and effort into that.
Yep, exactly,
Right?
exactly. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, you need to write the entire story, beginning, middle, and end in like
Mm-hmm.
2 pages,
Yeah,
and then expand upon that.
yep.
Not, okay, what am I going to write in chapter
Mm-hmm.
1, and then what am I going to, because then you get taken down a path, and you're like, oh no, this doesn't make
I
sense. Now
gotta
I
pull
don't know how
everybody
to.
back.
Exactly. No, you have
Yeah.
to write the entire story in 2 pages, then
Mm-hmm.
in 10 pages, and just keep,
Yep.
expanding upon that.
Yep. And keep growing it and
Yeah.
growing it and growing it. That's
Yeah.
exactly what we're going to be doing together for book 2.
Good.
And I have
For book
I
2,
yeah. Yeah,
what about book 1?
I'm almost finished with book 1.
But you did that with book 1 already, right?
I
Is
did
that what you're saying?
not.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
so you
That's
had to
why it's been
rewrite that a bunch of
so
times.
difficult to get through it. I've
Hmm.
been rewriting for, what is this, August? I've been rewriting since December,
Oh,
like
wow.
really truly rewriting. And I kind of had a loose idea. I knew what I wanted the story to be because I've written it already. And but then what the struggle has been at the end of the end of the story changed from what you read to what it is now. And I started to get confused. Like I started to think, okay, I've already talked about this, but it was in the first iteration. It's not in this iteration.
Hmm.
And so Hannah and I ended up doing what I ended up doing is doing summaries of the last 5 chapters, and then she did a full edit of everything. And so did I. I started from the top and read through everything. And I'm like, okay, we're gonna just to like give myself a wave to ride, because now that I've written something I'm really, really proud of, it's like,
Hmm.
okay, the last chapters, I know what they're supposed to be, and I know that they're gonna be really great. I need more. I need to put gas back in my tank, really. So
Hmm.
I need to reread what I've written so that I can convince myself that it's good. And
Hmm.
there's
I
so
get
many
that. Yeah.
times where I've completely like almost like disassociated and entered that creative space where I've written something and I'm just like, how? And I read it back. I'm like, I wrote that. I wrote that. What? So that's the excitement that I've needed to get through
Hmm.
the remaining chapters. And so
Hmm.
I have 4 more chapters to really develop, and then it goes through its final line edit, and then it'll go through the what is the term for the grammar edit? Anyway, it'll be the
Yeah.
grammar. And then
Yeah.
after that, it is completely done. And I'll be starting to develop a Kickstarter to help fund the project. And it'll go back out to the public. And
What
I'm
is the
really excited for
Kickstarter
it.
for in funding the project? What would that fund? What does that mean, fund the
So
project?
that will Kickstarter is a really, have you been on that website? Have you heard
Oh,
of
I
it?
know what it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I will be using Kickstarter to help fund the production, like a physical book. So when you read the book, I
Mm.
did ebooks because
Yeah.
that's what I could afford to do at the time. We had just paid for a wedding. Like I was so broke. And so
Hmm.
I was like, I can't afford to do like print copies and like order a bunch of them. And so I'm going to do some special edition copies in the Kickstarter that I will print myself, and people can order them, and they can fund different levels of the Kickstarter and get different fun things. Like, I'm considering doing some stickers and some illustrations, some like bookmarks, things of that nature, just fun stuff. And then the actual physical books themselves will have some additional art in them that are and illustrations and things of that nature, and they'll just be very pretty.
Cool. Are you going to try to Are you going to send it out to like publishers and that sort of stuff, or?
I don't know. I
Hmm.
don't know. I hesitate to do that because I enjoy the creative control.
Hmm.
Once you send to a publisher, they can choose to change certain parts of the story. And I have written in such a way that it is almost every detail is integral. And so to send to a publisher and have them come back to me and say, we want you to change this one thing, it could change the entire story. And I've already done that. It's one of those
You
that I've already gone through that developmental process where I had the first iteration and I have the second one, and I'm very excited about it. So I
you
don't
were
know that my
working with a
creative,
publisher before?
no, no, no.
Oh, but what do you mean? You went through a process similar to what a publisher would do?
What a publisher might want to do, which is
Hmm.
to change a pivotal part of the story to either make it better, but it wouldn't, it, those changes may not be as, um, would be an adaptation to the story and therefore might not be as closely related to astrology, which is what I've tried to do. Like, each of the details of each of the sects and the things that Jasmine goes through and when she goes through them is very tied to the astrology of that time, and the timing of things in the different chapters is very tied to the astrology 250 years in the future.
Hmm.
So it's very tight, and to change anything might change everything, and the butterfly effect might change the entire story. And I don't know. I like to have the creative control in that way. So I think if I came up with another series, and or if I had complete creative control with a traditional publisher, I think I would consider it. But
Is that impossible?
I don't know that it's impossible, but as a debut author, it might be
Like, did
exceptionally
J.K.
difficult.
Rowling have to change Harry Potter for the publisher?
Probably.
But you don't know.
I don't know.
I'd look
But
that up.
I've heard from authors who have sent things into their first book into a publisher, and certain details are changed, and like once. And it really would depend on, it would depend if I had an agent that was able to advocate for me, and it would depend on the contract itself.
Right.
But the other thing about pitching your book to a traditional publisher, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time because as an author, I can only send my completed draft to one one publisher at a time. And so if they decide they want to move forward with it, they will get back in contact with me.
Oh.
However, most publishers don't get back to you. They don't say yes or no, and specifically no. You just have to wait for 3, 4, 6, 8 weeks. And if they don't get back to you, it's a no. And so then you can go and send it to another publisher. And at that point in time, you wait another 3, 4, 6, 8 weeks. And if you don't hear back from them, then you can send it to another publisher. And so as an author, you can only send to one publisher at a time. And if you don't get it on the first try, it can take a very long time to get a book that's accepted by a publisher. And it's not that they don't like the book, or they just know the current market, and they
Right.
know And the other thing, once your book is accepted by a publisher and you maybe like sign contracts and things like that, there's like, then you go on kind of like a list with other books, and so other books have come before you, so they get their turn first, and then maybe somebody else, and then you. So it could take me 2 years to be accepted by a traditional publisher and go through all the negotiations and sign everything, and then it could be another 2 years before my book comes out.
Hmm.
Like that is the timeline of that industry, and that's a very short timeline of what could happen in that industry. And I don't know that I'm willing to wait that long, if that makes sense. Like that's a
Yes,
lot of
but
time.
Sagittarius North Node is about in seventh house. Sagittarius North Node,
Mm-hmm.
especially because that's Libra. Both Sagittarius and Libra are about patience.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like if you're the archer, you're not like, oh, I gotta get the bow on the claw, and like you're making, it's like if you're making all that noise, you're gonna scare the deer away. You got to be
Mm-hmm.
very intentional, slow, quiet,
Mm-hmm.
and the scales. It's not like you're rushing to throw things on the scales. You got to take your time, place it carefully, let it balance
Mm-hmm.
out. That South Node in Gemini in the first house is very impatient.
Mm-hmm. And
And I mean, I'm just, yeah, go ahead.
I feel that's what I did the first time. When you
That
read the
you were
story the first
impatient,
time,
that
I
you
was
rushed.
impatient and I
Yeah.
rushed, and I
Mm-hmm.
made decisions from a place of scarcity, and I made decisions from a place of just desperation, because I was in a 9 to 5 that I hated, and I didn't have, I didn't have a lot of money, I didn't have a lot of time, I felt frustrated and stuck, and I was like, the only way that I'm going to get out of this and break out of it is if I write my book and I finish it and I send it out into the world. And that's what I
Mm-hmm.
did. And then I got to trying to market what I'd created, and I put it out and I tried to market it, and I wasn't proud of it. And
Yes.
I had such a hard time like figuring out some kind of marketing strategy. And I took a bunch of classes and I did a bunch of things, and I like tried to put it all together. And then I was like, I just can't. I didn't do it justice. I didn't. And so I had to take it back, and I've worked with Hannah, and over the past like almost like since December, really, I think she read everything in October, November, and December is where I started rewriting. And that was the time where I've taken my time and I've made sure that I've done it well. And I've turned what was a novella of about
Uh-huh.
30, 40,000 words into a full-length novel of 120,000 words. And it's more fleshed out, and the character development is so much more than it was, because I've had more time, I've had more words to do so. And so this is the time where I have taken my time. And while
Mm-hmm.
that publisher piece, I could wait and I could do that, I just don't know. I just don't know. I think if I
Well,
if I were approached by a publisher that wanted to work with me, then sure, I would consider it.
hmm.
But I don't know that I would go through the repeated heartbreak again, because I did that the first time when
But
I
you
sent
tried to
my
get
book
a
out.
you
Mm-hmm.
tried. Did you try to get an agent, or did you try to
Both.
get it both?
Mm-hmm.
But you
Yeah.
just said that you weren't proud of the book, and it wasn't
Yeah.
as good as you felt it could be. So
Yeah.
they rejected you
Yeah.
because they saw what you saw.
But I just wasn't ready to accept it yet. And with this iteration, I am much more proud of what I've created, and I I do like the full creative control. So I think it would have to be the dream situation. But I think I'm too, I don't want to say cynical, but I don't believe in fairy tales. You know, I
Hmm.
don't think it's going to land in my lap. I think I have to work for it. I think I have to do my due diligence. and kind of do it myself almost, and I don't know that that is the right way to go, but it's
I'm just
something that
gonna
I
say that
feel
I don't
very
think that it
deeply.
is.
Yeah,
In my humble opinion,
please. Floor is
I
yours.
feel like you're. I mean, I feel like you have a really great story
Mm-hmm.
idea, and it's very special. And not to say that if you publish it yourself, it's not special.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you're talking about taking marketing classes and learning how to do this, you're wearing a lot of different hats.
Mm-hmm.
And that is first house south node in Gemini,
Yeah.
which is like being the jack of all trades and the master of none sort of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm going to do it all by myself. I'm going to be the publisher, the marketer, the author, all of it. And, and it feels like you're still in that
Yeah.
impatience.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important for you to prioritize creative control. It's important for you to um, have a freedom of timeline and vision,
Mm-hmm.
a personal authentic tone. um, you know it's about uh, an intentional reach.
Mm-hmm.
um, but you know uh,
I don't have to do it all by myself. I don't have to wear all the hats, which is something
yeah,
that I've kind of done through most of my life, is to wear all of the hats all at once. And
yes,
it's given me a lot of skill sets that I utilize and that I appreciate and that I enjoy. But it is something that I have been trying to move away from. And I think the ways in which I have put myself in situations where I do try to implement that, it it ends up going so poorly. And I think, and it's been in other, not in my books, but in other projects that I've tried. And so it like almost, and I don't want this to be reinforced, but it's almost like if I don't do it myself, it's not going to be done well. And that's not how I want to live. That's not how I want to lead.
exactly. No.
And so, yeah, I hear you. I hear you, and I
Because that
agree with
seventh
you.
house north node is like, if I'm not going to do, like you wrote that to me in the email about your
Yeah, yeah.
podcast too. If I don't do it myself, then it's not going to be done well. But Sagittarius is literally about faith. It's
Mm-hmm.
about faith. And when I pull back on this arrow and I let go, that it's going to hit its target.
Mm-hmm.
It's faith. And so you're here to develop faith in other people,
Mm-hmm.
because the seventh house is other people, being in
Yeah.
relationship with other people. So I guess like my question to you is, like, how many people do you want to read the book? How many people do you want to know this story?
As many as possible, honestly. I think there are some very
So a wider audience.
correct.
Well, a
Correct.
wider audience is going to come through a publisher
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and an agent and a team of people that are
Yeah.
supporting you in getting the story out, because they believe in it the way that you believe in it. And if they believe in it the way that you believe in it, then they're I would really look up like J.K. Rowling's story and find out how much of Harry Potter she had to change, because like as far as I know, she was like writing the story in coffee shops and didn't like she wasn't established at all.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who ended up publishing it, his daughter told him that this is the book,
Yeah.
and he listened to her. So,
Yeah. And that was, I think, she had tried to give this, from what I can remember off the top of my head, she tried many different publishers before it got to that one. I think she was querying, and that's the process that we're talking about, querying, I think for like 8 or 10 years before that daughter came to her dad and went, "Hey, you need to publish this." And much like my scan, it happens to be a fluke. It is like And that is, I feel like I've already had that in my life. I've already had that fluke. I don't, and I want to believe that it will happen again. And I want to, have all of those things. There has been so much of my life where I've had to, just not, I don't want to say trust in other people, but trust in myself and my own abilities. And that is something that I hold very dear. I can be in just about any situation and I can figure it out. And that's something that I love about myself and I cherish about myself. And I want to um, develop, because I want to sit in a room and have genuine, honest conversations with someone doing my marketing for me and truly understand what they're talking about.
Hmm.
Like, and I do get the trust someone aspect of it and just have faith, and I understand that. I do, and it is something that I struggle with, but I think I struggle with it from a place where I've been someone working with a leader who has no idea what your job is and has just given you a task that is absolutely unreasonable. And
Hmm.
I don't want to be that person. I want to lead and act with knowledge, with understanding, so that I'm not putting someone in a position that would just make them not make them hate me, but like put them in a position that is like way too challenging and have them not communicate that with me, because I've been in a position where I felt like I haven't been able to communicate with that particular leader. And it is something that was very pivotal in my life. And it's the kind of leader that I don't want to be. If that makes, am I making sense?
So, so are you saying that you're concerned that you're not going to find somebody who truly understands you in the way that,
mm, Perhaps to a point.
because like, so repeat what you just said about like you don't want to be the type of leader that finish that.
So I don't want to be the type of leader that doesn't understand the roles and responsibilities of the people that I'm leading. I want to be the kind of leader that understands what it is to market a book. Therefore, I can guide and lead in a way that is helpful and constructive and efficient.
But that
And
also sounds like, a bit of that Virgo control,
mhm, yeah,
needing to control things. It's like, I need
yeah.
to know how to do
Mhm.
your job, and your job so that I can make sure that you're doing a good job.
Uh,
That's,
yeah, probably. There's a little bit of that, I'm sure.
yeah.
But I want to I want to lead from a place of knowledge so that I can facilitate healthy relationships, not tell you how to do your job. I'm not that person. I don't ever want to be that person. If I do become that person, feel free to slap me across the face.
Hmm.
I don't enjoy putting other people that are working with me or for me, in positions where they feel, the word that's coming to me is helpless, because I've been in that situation where I have this job that's awful, and I've made decisions that I don't want to say regret, but I've made formative decisions out of desperation, and I don't want to recreate that energy in the world.
Hmm. So how do you avert from that
Mm-hmm.
energy?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Slowly, one one step at a time, one job at a time, one piece of my projects at a time. Like the developmental editing, for example, I've given to Hannah, and I
That's
trust her,
huge. Yeah.
and I
What made it that you
enjoy.
trusted her? How did you, the two of you meet, and what is it about her that?
Hannah, she sent me a DM on Instagram and asked if I needed someone to I'm like missing the word for fixing the grammar, because that's like what's considered like the smallest job in an editing process is like
Okay.
to fixing the grammar.
Yeah.
And she asked me if I needed any help with that, and I was like, actually, I need a developmental editor. I need someone who's going to read my books and tell me if I need to rewrite them.
Mm-hmm.
And she told it to me straight. She was very honest, came with receipts, proved herself to me. She wasn't afraid of hurting my feelings, and that is probably the moment that earned my respect. Was she didn't hold back. She shot
Right.
straight, and I was like, "Thank you. That's exactly what I needed to hear. You've reaffirmed what I already know." And it made me trust her, and the more that we worked together, the more I realized how aligned we are in our values. And she's also a really fun person to talk to. So
How long was that process from meeting her to really trusting her?
it was probably 2 months.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
Are you familiar with human design?
I've heard the term. I
Mm-hmm.
haven't gone down that particular rabbit hole.
Because you are the rarest type of human design, the rarest one.
Tell
There's
me more.
there's different types of human design. There's generators, manifesting generators, projectors, manifestors, and reflectors. You're a reflector. You make up 1% of the population is reflectors, and you're you know well, so reflectors, you know, you have your this is the thing, like when you look at this, so human design is actually based on astrology, the I Ching, and the Kabbalah. And so when you look at like the diagram for human design, it kind of looks like you've got a head, and then you have this like body, and then you have like 9 centers, um, that are that either they're filled in or they're empty. When they're filled in, that means they're defined.
Mhm.
And then there's all these lines that connect these different centers.
Okay.
When they're open, they're undefined. And a reflector is means that you have zero. None of these
None of them are
centers are
filled
filled
up.
in. Yeah, they're every single one is open. So that means that you are highly sensitive to your environment
Mhm.
and the people around you. Your role is to mirror the health of the community, acting as a barometer for the collective well-being. And I feel like you're doing this through your story,
Mhm.
because even though your story is about this fantasy world, this dystopia,
Mhm.
it's very keyed in and attuned to today, right?
Yeah.
In life on Earth. Okay, so one interesting thing. Were you going to say something?
No,
Oh,
no, it just
okay.
I'm receiving the information and thinking of all of the times where I was capable. Like I mentioned earlier, I can be put in any situation and it's figure outable.
Hmm.
I like and I really thought that was more aligned with, my being a Gemini rising. Like I can talk to anybody, I can be in any situation,
Hmm.
and it like this just reaffirms a lot of that I've experienced over time, where I will hear someone talking about me to someone else, and I'm like, really, that's how I come across? I didn't really
Hmm.
expect that. And I will hear something completely different from someone else, and I had the profound experience to take care of my grandmother when at the very end of her life, and she had dementia. She had no idea
Hmm.
who I was, and I
Hmm.
was showing her my engagement photos. And
Hmm.
she kept asking me, how do you know my granddaughter? And she remembered my now
Hmm.
husband, but she didn't recognize me in person, which I've
Hmm.
now know through some research that that's highly irregular. Usually they
Wow.
recognize the person in front of them, not the photo.
Hmm.
And so she ended up telling me about myself. And it was so different from what I've heard from friends and what I've heard from, other family members and people that I've worked with. And like, it reaffirms a lot of what you're saying, because in each situation I adapt.
So she was telling you about you to you, not knowing that
Mm-hmm.
you were
That
who
I
you
am
are.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was that experience like?
it it was very hard not to cry, because it
Mm.
it made it made it very clear that she was at the end of her life, that it was coming. And she had been on hospice for a year at that point, a little over a
Wow.
year. And
Wow.
so it was something we were able to prepare for emotionally, and like have moments with her that were very clear and very resonant. But I wasn't ever expecting the experience where she wasn't clear to be so profound to me. And it's something that I repeat to myself on the hard days, where I will just think about that
What she
experience
said?
and what she said to me and
What'd
how
she
she
say?
saw me.
Yeah.
Um, I think I'm going to keep that private if you don't
Okay.
mind,
Yeah, no,
but
of course.
it
Yeah.
was something that I know I will hear on the hard days, and it
Hmm.
will it will keep me going, and it has kept me going. And very, very special to me. And something
Yes.
actually I might ask listeners to help me with. I've been considering, as far as like ritualistic things. I have some of her items, and I've been exploring and considering like ancestral work and things like that. But I don't really know where to start, and I'd like to learn how to do it, because of that experience, really. And so I'm open to any advice or um, kind of rabbit hole that I can dive down when it comes to that as well. But yeah, it was, gosh, it just,
Hmm.
oh, I loved it. I
Wow.
loved it, and it's something I think about quite often.
Well, now's a great time to be doing the ancestral work with Jupiter and Cancer.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but you're human design, so that's the type you are. You're a reflector. Um, your strategy and your authority have to do with the lunar cycle, which is interesting that your podcast is called Moonlit Musings
yes, and
because you need so there's different authorities and strategies for based on whether you're a generator, a manifesting generator, a projector, or a manifester. But for the reflector, because you have 9 open centers, none are
mhm,
filled, you need to wait an entire lunar cycle before you can really determine if what you say you want.
yeah,
Uh, because you have to like wait for that consistency. If it keeps
mhm,
coming up, okay, it's been, and so that's why I asked about Hannah,
mhm,
because you said it was about 2 months. So it
yeah.
was 2 lunar cycles
Yeah.
before you really were like, okay, I think I like this gal. Like,
Yeah.
I trust her. Like, we're on the same page here. So, and
Mhm.
that's something that, I'm just take whatever I say with a grain of salt, but just from my perspective and just thinking about, how much I appreciate you and your creativity and your story and just the brilliance behind what I think that it is. I just encourage you to have faith in other people.
Mhm.
I know there's a lot of stories of, oh, the publisher made me do
Yeah.
this or my agent didn't back me up. But you also have to remember that these people are in their jobs because they're
They're
good
good
at their
at them.
jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them might actually really understand story really well. And maybe they were to give you a perspective or, insight that you could sit with for 28 days
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and decide if it,
Mm-hmm.
if it fits. You know what? This is actually a change that I would want to make. This makes the
Mm-hmm.
story so much better. And but sit with it and really think about it and learn. Part of your North Node in Sagittarius is having faith in other people, being honest and forthright. As long as you're honest with, like,
Mm-hmm.
listen, I'm happy to
Yeah.
hear feedback and criticize. I'm a Virgo. It's
Yeah.
like you can criticize me to the nth degree, because I guarantee you whatever you say about me is not going to be nearly as harsh as what I say to myself in my own
Mm-hmm.
criticism. So bring it.
Yeah. Bring it.
Give me
Let's see if
give
you
me
can
your
do.
notes. Give me your notes. But just know this, that when I get the notes, I'm not going to get back to you for an entire lunar
Yeah.
cycle. I'm going to have to sit with them and really process them, and it's going to take me at least 28 days
Mm-hmm.
to get back to you with what I feel about it. But I just encourage you to be open to those possibilities, because my concern is like the rushing. I've got to do this, I've got to do that, and then you're putting it out there with this energy of anxiousness,
Mm-hmm.
you know and they're really, when you release the book, there needs to be a sense of peace,
Yeah.
that we've covered all the bases. I know everything.
Yeah.
This is an amazing book, and everybody who reads this book is going to think it's amazing,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really where you want to be when you
Yeah.
release it.
I
Yeah.
agree. I
Yeah.
completely agree.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I know.
Amazing, Taylor. So good to talk to you about this. Yeah.
I actually, it's funny. Today I've been like considering like the podcast and talking to you about it, about Moonlit Musings, and why I started a podcast, because
Yeah, tell
anyone
us.
that knew me as anyone that knew me as a kid, or like even in my teen years when I was starting to come out of my shell, they're just like, you have a what? You have a podcast?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's very out of the box for me. Um and I really, when I was like sitting with it, I ended
Mm-hmm.
up and really sitting with the idea and what I wanted to be about and how I wanted to move forward and what it would mean to me and other people. When I was sitting with what it means to me, it is a way to really address my Chiron placement,
Mm.
because that was a place that and it's in Leo, and it's something
Mm-hmm.
that I know that I should spend some time on, some attention, and do so in a way that is not all at once, just slow and steady. So like I created the podcast, and it's audio only, like it's not video, so I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
like be all dolled up, which I'm not right now. I don't have any makeup on or anything, but
Neither am I,
but
so it's all good.
you look
I
looking
don't have
great.
any makeup on either,
Oh,
and I haven't even
beautiful.
showered today. So there you go.
So it I wanted a way that I could get comfortable being in the public with that Leo energy, because it's not something that really, I don't believe Leo energy comes naturally to me because of that Chiron placement. I
Mm.
think. And so if I can address it in small ways where I can slowly heal little bits of it as I go. And so here I am writing, and one day I will put what I've written out in the world. I've already done it once, I can do it again, and out to the critical eyes of everyone out there. And then I've now started the Moonlit Musings, and it's an audio podcast, and it's about moon transits and
Mm,
something that I am still constantly learning. And so I've partnered with astrologers who are versed
mm,
in all of this. And so they have each taught me something about moon transits, about astrology, about different signs, and I'm constantly learning as I go. And it has given me the opportunity to find a little bit more confidence and a little bit more confidence and a little bit more confidence in that Leo part of my chart, which has Chiron. And so it's you've brought up, every time you've brought up Chiron in our conversation today, I
mm,
just, it just leads me right back to this, that doing that work is not just, it's doing more than I think it is in my life. And that reaffirms how the work that I'm doing, even when it is hard. And it's a little bit hard right now because I'm trying to reach people that I don't know, and I'm trying to pull something together that, I don't actually know if there's enough need in this, the niche that I'm trying to pull
mm,
in. And it my goal for season 3 is to have every single episode, the co-host astrologer for every single episode, be someone who is negatively affected by the fires in Los Angeles.
mm,
Just because, like, it we have Jupiter in Cancer right now. Like, that just feels like good, solid, beautiful community energy.
mm,
And it's I'm I'm so tired of paywalls, and I'm so tired of like having to work so super hard to gain a little bit of traction when it comes to learning things. It's in the astrological sphere, and every single day things get more expensive. And I think there's going to be a point where we need opportunities to learn, like with your podcast, The Weekly Transit, with my podcast, Moonlit Musings, where we have learning opportunities for people who are interested, but may not be able to afford whole classes, or may not be able to dedicate a ton of time to listening to a bunch of different, like modular classes and things of that nature, because we're all out here struggling. So if it can be
mm.
condensed into something like the weekly transit, where you take 1 week at a time and you talk about the main things that are going on, and you, for me, it's once about every other week we talk about one lunation. the we introduce the astrologer and we talk to them about where they got their start, where they've studied, and build a little bit of trust. The next section, we talk about the lunation and what sign it's in, what the themes are, how to work with the energy, and really try to give the listener a little bit of empowerment, because that's
Mm,
really what lunations tend to be, is an opportunity to manifest, an opportunity to reflect on how far you've come when it comes to the new moon versus a full moon. And then, of course, eclipses are a whole other thing, and those are so transformative.
yeah.
We also go over the aspects, and then we break into readings for every rising sign, and that's the episode. So you can choose to listen to the whole thing, or you can listen to just the first 3 parts, and then you're reading for that lunation. But it's meant to be a learning opportunity. It's meant to connect listeners who are new to astrology to astrologers they can trust, because it can be a little bit scary to step into a world that you don't really know, in a language you don't quite understand, and worry that you're not going to get the full, like, all of your needs met when it comes to understanding your reading. And so I'd like to give opportunities to astrologers who know what they're talking about, but specifically for this season, I think there is a need in Los Angeles because of these devastating fires. And
Mm,
the news cycle has moved on, but the
yeah.
trauma is still there.
Wow.
Like, people are still living with this every single
Mm-hmm.
day, and it is,
Totally.
if there is a way that I can help, I'm going to try to do that. And this
Mm,
is the vehicle that I have to do it.
wow. Amazing. Well, on behalf of Los Angeles, since I live here,
Yeah.
I really appreciate you still caring about what happened,
Mhm.
because yeah, the news cycle has moved on, and people's lives are still affected
Mm-hmm.
by what happened there. I have
Yeah.
family that was
Oh.
directly affected, so um and so, man, this is just so fascinating because you're doing a podcast about, understanding the transits of the moon,
Mm-hmm.
and that is so in alignment with your human design, and
I
is
know.
needing to follow the moon cycle and wait an entire moon cycle before you make any major decisions. Yeah, have you found some astrologers that have been directly affected by the fires?
Yes, I've had three astrologers get back to me.
Mm-hmm.
I have plenty of other episodes, and I have a forum on my website that I can give you a link to, Scott, if you would
Yeah.
be so kind.
Yeah, we'll
And
put it in the show notes.
yeah, so there's a form on my website that any astrologer can fill out, but I will be specifically prioritizing astrologers who are negatively affected by these
Mm-hmm.
fires. But anyone can fill out the form. Just be honest, please. There's one question that asks you if you were affected. If you were not, please check no.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who can check yes, I am profoundly sorry for what you've been through. I've witnessed a friend of mine who went through a total loss fire, and the fire itself is devastating, but rebuilding is a whole other animal.
Totally.
Between the arguing with the city for permits and just to be able to go and retrieve what might still be there, it's just wave after wave after wave. And I think
Totally.
it's it is it does a disservice to the people who were affected not to remember that they were affected.
Yeah. I mean, it's you're right. The fire is one thing, but it's the rebuilding process. It's,
Yeah.
as painful. It's like these communities have literally been destroyed.
Yeah.
And, to just like, I mean, I drove through Altadena last weekend, and I was like, this is the first time I'd been there since the fires happened. And man, it is bleak.
Yeah.
It's just like so depressing. And I drove through the Palisades too a couple weeks ago, and that's not as depressing as Altadena. Uh,
But what
you
a
know,
scale
but
to
but
consider.
it's still like it's still depressing. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, and it's so eerie because there are just entire blocks that are gone,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very confusing. Like I tried to find um, a friend's house that I'd been to, maybe 3, 4, 5 times, and I couldn't find it because
Mm-hmm.
there was so I don't remember what street it was on. If I was just driving there and all the landmarks were there, I'd be able to
Yeah.
find it, no problem. But uh, I was like, I know it's around here somewhere, but I don't know exactly
Yeah.
where it is. And
Yeah. Those context
yeah,
clues are really important.
yeah.
Mhm.
So, and it's going to be
Gosh.
years
Yeah.
until it's rebuilt, and who knows what it will be like, and how many people that live there have been pushed aside or pushed out or not able to return because
Mm-hmm.
it's too expensive.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. There seemed to be this like uh, this bit of like false information that was out there that like, oh, these people are rich and they can just, and not everybody's
No,
rich.
they're in
Like
neighborhoods.
some people even in the Palisades, which is a wealthy neighborhood, but like some people, they live there for 50, 60 years. Like
Mhm.
what they bought their house for then,
Yeah.
like they
Yeah.
couldn't like afford to buy their house there now,
No. And
like
that's generational wealth that's like gone,
mhm.
basically. That,
Yeah.
it's gosh, it's painful to consider, and I'm on the other side of the country. And
Yes. That's why I'm like so amazed that like you even care, because you're so far away, and it seems like everyone forgot what happened there, but
mhm.
you're still you're a sensitive soul. And
I'm doing
so
what I can with
yeah.
what I got.
No, yo, absolutely. Like you're doing so much more than most, just
Mhm.
to even like bring it up.
Mhm.
Um so
Thank you.
yeah. Yeah. So you got into the podcast because you wanted to work on your Chiron.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is podcasting, I think, is in alignment with your North Node, where you're not doing it alone.
Mm-hmm.
You're bringing on guests,
Yeah.
and you're having conversations, and you're sharing your perspective and your truth, and you're listening to them, and you're creating, I imagine, a balanced exchange between
Mm-hmm.
two people. And yeah,
Yeah. Trying
yeah,
to anyway. Doing
yes.
my best.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing, Taylor.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think. There was something else I was going to say about that. Oh, you also mentioned that it was uh, very, like, kind of like outside of the box about you doing a podcast.
Yeah.
And,
It's
but the
funny
funny
saying
thing,
that now.
yeah, but the funny thing about it is your moon is in Aquarius.
Mm-hmm.
And Aquarius is the sign that I would associate that term with, outside of the box,
Mm-hmm.
because it's about being different than everyone else. So, of course, you're going to surprise people. And that is a part of your human design as well. Like, your signature is surprise. When you are surprised, when you have that good surprise, or when you do something outside of the box, it's not only cueing into your Aquarius placements, but it's also aligning with your human design, where you're in the right frequency, where it's like, oh my God, it's such a fluke. They just looked at my neck
Yeah.
and they figured it out. But
Yeah.
that's where you need to focus your energy, is on the unexpected, on the surprise. It's not about um well, this is how all, you know, uh, agents and publishers are. You need to be open with your manifestations,
Yeah.
open that anything is possible. Surprise me. Like, Earth is a restaurant, and you are its guests, and the servers and the staff are like the angels and spirit guides, and God is in the kitchen cooking the food. And when you show up there, when was the last time you went to a restaurant, you ordered your food, then you went to the computer and typed it in, and then you went back into the kitchen and started cooking it? Have you ever done that before?
No.
Exactly. So don't do that in life. When you sit down at the restaurant, you want to say to the server, when they say, "What would you like?" You say, "I heard this place is amazing. Surprise me."
Yeah.
And that's what you need to say to the universe. It surprised me. I don't know if I'm going to self-publish it. I don't know if I'm going to get it published by the biggest publisher in the world or whatever, but my intention is that I want people to read this book, and I want them to be moved and transformed in the most positive, empowering way, and recognizing that they are a unique individual that matters,
Yeah.
and that they're not just one of 12,
Yeah.
that they have such diversity. And I want that to go out to as many people as possible. And so, whatever that path is, I don't know exactly what the path is to get there, but I
Yeah.
trust that the universe is going to surprise me with something amazing. My story is going to be as amazing as the story that I wrote.
Yeah. I speak it into existence.
Yes, we just did.
We just did.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
exactly. Well, it's been such an honor to reconnect with you, Taylor, and to hear more about your story. So much of it I didn't know. So I really want to thank you for your vulnerability and your trust in me and the audience, and sharing what you shared. And I wish you all the best with, like, the podcast and the book and all of it. You're such a bright, shining light, and you have this desire to do good and empower people. And so I just wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you.
You're
Now you're gonna make me
welcome.
cry again.
Hmm.
Thank
Do
you,
you have
Scott.
any? You're welcome. You're welcome. What, like, final thoughts do you have for the audience, to, any inspiring or empowering words to share with those who are listening?
The same ones that I wrote, that you
Hmm.
are so much more than your sun sign. There
Hmm.
are so many parts of your chart that you could leave untouched and unknown, but to take the time to know your chart, to know yourself, and know how it is helping you to move through the world, what parts need attention, what parts need to be trusted, and working every day to learn a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more about yourself and about the world around you. It creates such power that I think has gone unutilized for many generations, and we might be the ones to bring it back around. And if we all work at it, I think we'll get there.
That's why I feel like this book's going to be a huge hit because I mean, you know, Pluto and Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign that rules astrology. So I feel like in the next 20 years, astrology is going to be mainstream. And your book might be a part of how it got there, because people are going to be like, what is it? This book's amazing. It's astrology. So cool. Now I want to learn my chart. I want to know more about myself and where my Mars is and Venus and Jupiter. And
yeah. I mean, I sure hope so. I hope that is the case. And I believe that it is, I believe that it exists in some timeline. I just have to figure out how to get there.
Yes. Well, just continue to follow that feeling of abundance and possibility and the surprise, and give yourself plenty of time, you know, a whole lunar cycle to make a decision. Like, there's no rushing. Be patient. It's going to come to you. The amazing surprise is on its way. Just be patient. You can't rush it. Then it's not a surprise.
Yeah. I hear you. I'm excited. I'm tentatively excited for Uranus and Gemini, just because that will ramp up that surprise, because my ascendant's at 9 degrees of Gemini. And so the big surprises are coming.
Oh, yeah.
In the summer of 2027, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
But so I'm excited. I'm preparing. I'm doing my best to just work through what insecurities I still hold, so that when those big surprises happen, I can just grab hold of them and walk forward on my way.
Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? Moonlit Musings. So
my Instagram is at author_t.e.tran, Tran. And my website is authortetran.com, all one word. And I have a page on that website for Moonlit Musings, and the contact page holds the form for astrologers who were affected by the fires. You can find it there, and Scott will put a link in the show notes as well. And the Instagram for the podcast is Moonlit Musings Pod. And that's where you can find me.
And you can find the podcast on like Spotify and all the podcast places where the people listen. Okay, cool. We'll put all the links in the show notes as well. But thank you again, Taylor, for being here. It's been an honor to have you as a guest, and all the best to you. Good luck with the book and the podcast.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to reconnecting with you down the road.
Absolutely, Scott.
Thank you for listening to the Weekly Transit. Interviews and conversations from an astrological lens. This episode was produced by me, Scott Tajarian. Music written by Ben Leinbach from Listen Deep by Amber Herzog-Lyman. If you're interested in being a guest on The Weekly Transit, you can email me at scott@theweeklytransit.com. Wishing you all the best as you ride the planetary waves.